The Gnostic Heretic. Bringing you your fill of enlightenment, politics, and other heinous blasphemies that will set even the hardiest radical tingling. Welcome all of you heathens and ne'er-do-wells to WiseBites, the roughly 20-minute show where the Gnostic Heretic sets the world to rights to such a degree that I wrote a complaint letter to myself about a mispronounced word on last week's show. This week, we duel with the nonsense that is Traingate on the propaganda pick of the week. Then we butt heads with the regressive left on the thought for the week. And in rambling on, we go from medicine to the geopolitical hegemony. Welcome to the propaganda pick of the week, where the Gnostic Heretic picks a trending topic in the news which has some sort of value, no matter how tenuous, to life, activism, meritocracy, and whatever else. This week, it just had to be Traingate. I wanted to do a US pick, but this one just took ridiculous to the next level and shit upon it from a great height. Devoutly loved and yet utterly despised Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn once again found himself under the knife of the tabloid press in one of the most pointless scandals ever. He was accused of purposely misleading the public by posting a picture of himself sitting on the floor of a Virgin train. He posted this online. Is it fair that I should upgrade my ticket whilst others who might not be able to afford such a luxury should have to sit on the floor? It's their money I would be spending after all. Following this, billionaire, capitalist and Virgin owner Richard Branson released video footage of a carriage showing empty seats still available, even though Corbyn claimed the train was ram-packed. Responding to this, Corbyn said, "Yes, I did walk through the train. Yes, I did look for 2 empty seats together so I could sit down with my wife to talk to her. That wasn't possible, so I went to the end of the train." He claimed that after 40 minutes, the train manager had found seats for him, but that was after the photo had been posted. This absurd incident about sitting on a train was labelled Traingate in honour of Watergate, a genuine mass corruption incident in American politics. He sat on the floor of a train and made a ticked-off tweet about Virgin. Who actually cares? What bearing does that have on anything in life? Nothing. The fact that people got so angry made me scared for the future of the human race. I knew trains were a big deal in England, but jeez, calm down, you pack of petty bloodhounds. Welcome to the Thought for the Week. This week we will be discussing the regressive left. Irrespective of which era a person grows up in, they will find themselves in a culture embroiled in one or more hot topics. These debates seem to resonate strongly within the culture and bring up equally potent passions on all sides about what it means to be a part of that culture. In the Western world, the hot topic is Islamic extremism. What to do with Islam? The left wing in general is accepting of diversity and promotes multiculturalism. The right wing is insular and promotes the native culture of the land over all others. However, Islamic extremism has caused such a problem because Western powers have interfered in Middle Eastern affairs to an extreme degree. But at the same time, Islamic terrorism has besmirched the West itself on innumerable occasions. The tension here arises because many Westerners see themselves as tolerant, but at the same time they do not want their families to die in a suicide attack. The Gnostic Heretic will be unpacking this controversial problem and interrogating a certain group of people, sometimes labelled the regressive left. Once upon a time, a hardline Islamic extremist shook his head and asked himself, "What the hell am I doing with my life?" That man was Maajid Nawaz, who has become a leading activist opposing the tenets and spread of radical Islam. In his book, Radical: My Journey Out of Islamist Extremism, Nawaz set his critical crosshairs on a certain group of the left wing, who tend to be well-meaning liberals and ideologically driven leftists who ignorantly pander to Islamist ideology. The crux of his problem with them is that they hold paradoxical views. On the one hand, they are promoters of liberalism and multiculturalism, and on the other, they tolerate Islamism, which is conservative and holds other cultures in abject contempt. They are, in effect, being accused of tolerating intolerance. To use Nawaz's exact words, regressive leftists have an inherent hesitation to challenge some of the bigotry that can occur within minority communities for the sake of political correctness, for the sake of tolerating what they believe is other cultures and respecting different lifestyles. Mr. Nawaz has claimed that Islamism is a global totalitarian theopolitical project which harbours a desire to impose any given interpretation of Islam over society as law. Mr. Nawaz views this as a fundamental violation of our basic civil liberties. He goes on to further highlight that the regressive left contains atheists who are on the side of the Islamists, defending Islamism in the name of cultural tolerance. His reasoning for this stance is that many leftists believe they are fighting a binary ideological war with the right wing. It is often considered an example of a false dichotomy, since anything said against another culture is branded right-wing and racist, regardless of facts. Islamism wishes harm to secular society. In this regard, he makes one of the very few relevant criticisms of Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, saying that he has historically been too lenient on extremist groups. He believes that neoconservative militarism and Islamic extremism both must be condemned. But because that does not fit in with the left-wing false dichotomy, Islamism ends up being pardoned while Western state intervention is condemned. He further goes on to slam the regressive left as being racist towards Muslims, saying that they assume that they cannot take criticism. He calls it patronising, self-pity inspiring mollycoddling. This racism of low expectations automatically assumes that Muslims will behave violently by default. Thus, they are considered less accountable for their actions and are attributed inherently lower moral standards. In other words, they are treated less than human and more as semi-human animals. The so-called regressive left can be more properly understood using psychology. They are often highly emotional people, such as feeling dominant on the MBTI scale. They believe in the utopic vision that if we just accept everyone, they will live in peace. Their mantra is live and let live. This viewpoint is emphatically not backed up by any evidence, and is more telling about the type of person professing that viewpoint. Live and let live does not work when the group you are tolerating wants to kill you. The rational viewpoint, however, which often raises the ire of the regressive left, is that no rational state can ever tolerate intolerance. By doing so, you are proving yourself intolerant. But to the regressive left, such a rational viewpoint is considered right-wing, reactionary, and conservative. This then results in the demonization of the rational left by the regressive left. This only serves to push the agenda of the right wing, as the left is seen as saccharine, sentimental, and ineffectual. This problem is very well demonstrated by the reactions to France banning the burkini. The rational left-wing position is that it is to promote secular values. However, all other religions are permitted to dress as they please in the public sphere. When the law is enforced, racial language is exchanged and mantras of "this is a Catholic country" can be heard. That is not a secular statement. The true feeling among people, if they are being honest, is right-wing and still very much Abrahamic. The secular speech is a cover-up for repression of one religion and the smug display of other equally contemptible Abrahamic faiths. It just goes to show just how little true influence the rational left has, as the beliefs within the main public sphere are either of the regressive left or of the right-wing false dichotomy. In a meritocratic society, the public sphere will have a strict law of neutrality. Signs and symbols of religion, political groups, or any other contentious issues will be totally forbidden. Such public displays could be made in designated areas at designated times, such as a religious or political convention, in which every religion or political group is allowed to make representation, but in a way which does not force it on anyone. If you do not want to see it, you should not have to. You can freely avoid it. Everybody has the right to leave their house and not feel oppressed by religious or political symbols, speech, and especially verbal or physical abuse. We all must share the public arena, and that leaves no room for partisan, ideological, and religious displays. People deserve peace in the public sphere. This goes even for small issues, such as door-to-door salesmen, and when and where you can walk your dog. Neutrality is for the community. Particularity is private. Welcome to Ramblin' On, where the Gnostic Heretic talks about whatever he damn well pleases. As all studious advocates of hyper-rationality know, the monad, or as I like to call it, the psychon, exists dimensionlessly in the mental singularity. Its infinite energy capacity and windowed nature makes communication between infinite monads possible. Therein lies the basis for the soul and the very stuff of life itself. However, as Descartes realized, the interface between mind and matter proved elusive, bringing up the substance dualism problem. Leibniz, on the other hand, realized the universe was a monism, and so low energy frequencies from psychons constitute the material world via Fourier mathematics. The supposed solidity of the world is in fact an illusion used by our minds to navigate the shared objective dimensional realm. This could potentially change the way we look at many things, even healthcare, since all material things, including the body, are nothing more than sinusoidal energy frequencies measured in hertz. It follows that illnesses can be analysed as frequencies too. Devices such as the EMF monitor could be used to diagnose illnesses using precise mathematical measurements. In theory, this could also be used to change the frequency of the body and cure disease. It is possible the key to this is harmonics. The body itself has a core frequency, as do its constituent parts. By tuning into these frequencies, great curative strides could be attained. The empiricist scientific community have even had their noses in this area of research. Researcher Robert Becker showed that living things contain an overall electric charge, which can be measured from the outer surface of the body. Furthermore, he demonstrated that bones can create piezoelectric potentials which lead to semi-treatment of ununited fractures using electricity. He claimed that the procedure would work properly if they made devices that were designed for that purpose, and the electric field of the equipment itself was better accounted for. Bruce Tanyo was the one to start using the biofrequency monitor to establish a connection between frequency and disease. Natural foods such as fruits and vegetables have higher frequencies than manufactured foods. Eating right matches the frequencies of the body better than eating junk food. If we can establish that with the limited research and technology we already have, then what is possible if the mind itself, the source of frequency, is utilized for medicinal purposes? This is an area which demands much more attention. As much as we would love to cure all illnesses with the unbending power of math, the power of society is not quite so analytic. A very popular trend among the anti-establishment recently is to paint Russian President Vladimir Putin as some kind of hero. Yes, folks, for the third week in a row, we're going to talk about the Russians. Play the music. Vladimir Putin is often viewed as some sort of revolutionary savior of the Russian people, a non-communist opposition to Western hegemony. As a result, many disenfranchised Westerners have turned to the English-speaking division of RT News, a Russian state-sponsored media company, as a source of news, as opposed to the BBC, CNN or Fox, who runs stories critical of Mr. Putin and Russia. RT often tries to portray Putin as the voice of reason against a jingoistic and reactionary West. As much as the Gnostic Heretic agrees that Putin in reality is not as he is portrayed, but he also disagrees that Putin is a hero. He is a compromiser, a pragmatist. He is often credited with forcing back the Russian oligarchs as some sort of avenging knight, and as such an example for the Western governments to push back the Wall Street elite. However, Putin did not push them quite back, as he did make a deal with them. When he summoned them to a meeting, he said, "You had control over the political process. If you are unhappy, you only have yourselves to blame." The logical thing to do here would be to nationalize the vital infrastructure owned by these criminals and jail them. But no, Putin refused to nationalize them and instead made sweeping compromises by slashing the corporation tax so that the oligarchs would, and I quote, "start paying what you owe." This is exactly the same stance taken by Western leaders. Oligarch Mikhail Khodorkovsky of Yukos Oil portrays himself as the ultimate victim, saying that now we know what the state wants of us. As if paying taxes was not obvious. It is not a good enough excuse to portray yourself as someone who does not understand the basic rules of society. Honestly, who doesn't understand that you have to pay taxes? Everyone does. Putin as a hero is a myth. Heroes do not mollycoddle criminals. Even though people such as Kordopsky ended up in jail, it was just one head off the Hydra. Another head grew to replace him. Putin is a classical member of the global capitalist elite, and his behaviour proves it. Much further south, the capitalist elite have been hacking away at Greece, stripping away its assets and dignity with economic rape. Before the infamous capitulation of Syriza chief Alex Tsipras, the Greek people voted in a referendum about whether or not to accept austerity measures. 61.5% voted yes to reject austerity. The rich voted no. The poor always lose out with austerity measures, while the upper middle to upper classes benefit. This was a declaration of class war. A block of rich interest groups elbowed their way into government to defend their so-called right to live off of the labour of others. They did not even try to cover up their naked self-interest when they gave the poor an ultimatum. Work for terrible wages or we sack you. Regardless of this bullying block of psychopaths, the country voted no to austerity. We all know what happened next. Syriza, against their mandate, capitulated and accepted the austerity measures. Greece is now in a depression which was worse than the Great Depression. A true revolutionary must be composed of two rare qualities. They must be unbuyable and unbreakable. No amount of bribery or threats could shake a true revolutionary. Their end goal is worth more than all of the money in the world and is noble enough to endure the most brutal suffering. Alex Tsipras broke. He fell under the heavy boot of the super rich. Their superior PR, connections and resources just seemed so unbeatable to Mr. Tsipras, so much so that hope itself left him. He betrayed his own people because his own spirit had turned to ashes. It is a rare person indeed who can face the hurricane of the old world order, sucking up every blow thrown at them, but still stand adamant that the world will change and take the form of their vision. And so meritocracy will stand unbuyable and unbreakable, with zealousness that will never end, for the cause of equal opportunities and a rational future drives us ever forward. This statement is directed towards the old world order. You may not have heard of us yet. We may be small and laughably weak, but that's just for now. We are declaring war against you. From this day forward, you should not, even for one night, sleep peacefully. For you know deep down, we're coming for you. Meritocracy. It's inevitable. From me to you, until next time, goodbye.